How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Eternal Strands. So, we're about to head out to a new area, but let's just see if you can talk to anybody here.
You know, there's one silver lining to the sad tale of our deceased runners.
What's that?
We know the Hearthsiders still have some advanced production capabilities. The materials they were gathering don't have much use for basic survival. Therefore, weapons, armor, and enchantments.
Any concerns about us claiming them?
None. They've been there long enough. Scavenger etiquette applies. These kinds of materials are too rare to let go to waste.
Okay. Let's check with Lane. Leanne, Lane, not sure what her name is. uh, Just scanning through this quick. Okay. Jeez, it's a long one. Okay.
Brynn, a moment. I'm collecting data, surveying the team, so to speak. One question is all I need answered. Do you think Ava deserves a share in any rewards for the work undertaken by the Weaver Band?
Oh, absolutely.
Oops.
She might even end up being named point over me if she keeps it up.
I think it stretches the bounds of credibility to suggest that we could weave a mantle big enough for her.
You think so?
Yes, that'll be all. Thank you for your time.
Oh. I mean, if you wanted a real answer, then I suppose so. It's probably something Casmin would have a better answer for.
I'll go ask her next then. Note to self, refine census questions.
Okay. Alright. So, off to a brand new area. What sort of creatures are we going to encounter? I'm excited. We gotta get some new powers.
Where am I? Underground?
Barrier almost looks like the Veil.
It must be the one Lucia wrote about in her notes.
And the panel looks like our scry. Anyone know what it is?
No idea.
Similar design to a scry, but it looks like it's a permanent installation. Like it interfaces with the room. Could this be the harness?
Must be. It seems like Asylum involved sealing away whatever's beyond this barrier. Interesting. This must be related to Asylum. But until we have more information, I can't be sure how.
Maybe I'll take one more look around the bastion. There must be something I missed.
Oh, god damn it. Seriously? Hey, hey, hey. I found the basement. I think we have everything we need to piece together what Asylum actually. I just need to turn everything. Okay, alright. Well, that's good. Okay. Guess I don't have to go back to the bastion again. I mean, why couldn't I do that in the first place before I went there? Okay. It's well documented that across the Mata, The surge was catastrophic. However, primary documents found within the Bastion are the first to shed light on what those impacts may have been behind the Enclave's veil. The minutes of a war room meeting amongst the Enclave's highest-ranking military officials dated in 1020 indicate that following the surge, casualties plateaued for a while before beginning to rise again sometime around 1015. 5 years later, at the time of the aforementioned meeting, casualty rate was high enough that the remaining weavers were in danger of being overcome entirely. The exact cause of these casualties is inconclusive. It's not difficult to hazard a guess that the same natural disasters that ravaged parts of the Mata following the surge would have played a factor in the Heartsiders' deterioration inside the Veil. Our points explorations comprehensively demonstrate that the Enclave's landscape and settlements have been torn apart by earthquakes, and its extreme weather fluctuations frequently render its environments inhospitable. In addition, the danger of wild creatures clearly intensifies the longer they were exposed to raw magic in the wake of the surge. These varied threats would undoubtedly result in casualties within a long-suffering population. In addition to this, a research paper was found within a military workshop for enchanters, dated 1010, entitled Observing Arc Degradation. This paper raises another theory that perhaps the Arc's hostility had contributed to the survivors' rise in casualties. Initially, our band had pondered the question of whether the Arc's hostility was an act of defense from the surviving weavers here. This paper proves otherwise. It would appear that there was an unexpected and normal amount of behavioral degradation, according to the Enclave head of defensive weaving, Cornelius Trad. However, over the course of the following 10 years, the Arcs began turning against their creators until all had become hostile by 1010. Trad believes that something sinister was at play, noting that this was far more than a regular malfunction. To summarize, it's difficult to conclude with certainty which of, if any, of the factors are what led to the devastating casualties among the survivors. This in large part is due to the mass censorship ordered by the Enclave's highest ranking official, the Eye. Thus most of the records have found pertaining to the rise in casualties are heavily redacted. However, in a letter to the Bastion's commander, Karn Stummelide expressed concern that the details of the crisis were being leaked to a dissenting group of civilians who might aspire to thwart the Asylum. This detail allowed us to tighten the scope of the search significantly. So what was Asylum? We can say with certainty that Asylum was a defensive measure that was enacted in 1026 as a response to the rising casualty rate, and that it involved sealing an underground portion of the city behind a magical barrier not dissimilar to the Veil surrounding the Enclave. Given that we still have yet to encounter any Heartsiders, it would be easy to conclude that the surviving population of the Enclave was sealed inside the barrier for safekeeping from the various threats that escalated following the surge. It is important to note that there is no solid evidence to confirm this. This could be due to the fact that Asylum was a covert military operation, and thus the Enclave took care not to document the location of their safe haven. That would be a reasonable estimation, but it is important to note that this is pure speculation until we find further proof of what Asylum's barrier contains.
I know we need to discuss the barrier and its potential ties to the flood. But want to give me a rundown of the research first?
Of course. Years after the surge, there was an inexplicable spike in casualties.
You don't think it's due to the Arcs going hostile?
Well, that may be part of it, but we can't be certain due to the information blackout. All we know is that it nearly wiped the Hearthsiders out. What seems to have saved them was Asylum's execution. a defensive measure that involved sealing the underground behind a magical barrier.
Almost like the Veil.
Exactly like the Veil.
Boy.
It's got to be where the Hearthsiders went, right? Remember, the letter mentioned they were evacuated from the city.
To an undisclosed location. We have no real confirmation that they are down there.
But it would make sense, wouldn't it? After all, asylum can mean shelter or safekeeping.
It can also mean prison. I know everyone wants an easy answer to where they went, but something just doesn't add up. You would think there would be at least one document linking Asylum to the evacuation of the city, and there simply isn't.
Guess we didn't need to read all that because they're kind of rehashing all
Khan
that.
Stanield
but
gave
that's all
the orders to execute
right.
Asylum.
Seemed important.
Do we know anything else about him?
Judging from the series of letters between him and the commander, it would seem that, at the time, he was recently elected. And judging from the frequency with which he followed up on the commander's progress with Asylum, this defensive measure was a key pillar in his political platform. He seemed to grow increasingly concerned with his popularity among civilians in the most recent letters.
Ugh, isn't that kind of slimy?
Leveraging a security crisis to consolidate political influence? Yes, it's incredibly slimy and effective.
And the commander? Do we know what happened to him?
It would appear that Asylum was executed successfully, so perhaps he is still alive. But until we find the Hearthsiders, we can't know for sure.
You said the casualties spiked long after the surge. Can you elaborate on what might have caused this?
This is truly the thousand-fairer question. With the information blackout, I can't find a concrete link to the cause across hundreds of pages. Arc hostility could certainly be a factor. Clearly, numerous Weavers were killed by their own defenses. The recorded minutes from other meetings in the war room illustrate a long period of geological instability following the surge as well. Aftershocks and earthquakes, and well, not to mention the outskirts grew more dangerous each year as the creatures were allowed to breed unculled. But these threats seemed to plateau in the early years after the surge. There is no mention of the spike that resurfaced and prompted Asylum.
That's so strange.
It is.
So the Enclave didn't just hide information from the rest of the Mater, but their own people as well.
Judging from the secrecy and a few of the letters you found, I would guess that high-level officials were paranoid. Clearly, not everyone was in favor of this measure, and some might have wished to thwart it.
People like Lucia.
And a dissenting group known as the Verdant Minds that she had ties to. Though it's entirely unclear what those ties were.
So, back to the barrier. Think it's the one Lucia was trying to take down?
Yes, the very same. She was right, too. It's causing the miasma floods. The raw magic that off-gasses from the Veil is what causes the tangles to cluster at its base. In speaking with Darm, we theorized that this second barrier could potentially be doing the same thing, except in a more pressurized environment, like, say, within a barrier of kinetic magic.
We don't get small pockets of raw magic like tangles. We get floods of it.
Precisely.
So we need to remove Asylum's barrier to stop the flood. Lucia's thimble could undo the barrier, but we don't have the parts to build it yet.
Those parts just became essential.
Okay. So who do I gotta take down?
All right. Let's go over everything we know so far.
We know that, for a time after the surge, civilians continued to live in Tenebron until they were forced to evacuate the city. We're still not sure the cause.
Wherever the Hearthsiders went, they're still actively sending scouting groups to scavenge for supplies. From the uniform, the creeper who was watching Brynn sleep belongs to one of these groups.
We also know that a defensive procedure codenamed Asylum sealed access to the Enclave underground. This was done using a barrier almost exactly like the Veil.
Lucia, an ex-high enchantress, opposed Asylum and began working on ways to sabotage it.
Her research forecasted that the barrier would cause the Enclave to flood with miasma. The very same flood that seems to have killed Lucia before she was able to finish her thimble.
But we have her design. It could disrupt Asylum's barrier.
So Lucia's thimble is the key to our survival.
It's less a key and more like a magical battering ram.
Whatever works.
What is it, Lane?
It's just, I've pored over all the documents we've compiled, and a concrete link between the evacuation plan and the underground is nowhere to be found. I can't shake the feeling we're missing something.
There was information blackout. Wonder if that's what this link is missing. There's nothing I can handle. Reassure Lane, I got this. Have a point, but remind them that survival of flood is a priority.
The Enclave destroyed a lot of information from their documents. Could that be why you can't find a link between Asylum and the evacuation?
I considered that. The Enclave may have hidden their location from Lucia.
Being a weaver isn't about being certain all the time. It's about taking calculated risks to carve a path forward. And regardless of the Hearthsider's location, disrupting the barrier is the only option to stop the flood.
You're right. I just hope that if we did miss something, it doesn't come back to bite us.
Even if it does, we will handle it.
That settles it. Brynn, it's time to use the thimble.
Hey, Dom. Check your left pocket.
My left, oh, a new ring? Oh, you shouldn't have.
It's nothing.
What the hell? We suddenly have it? Okay.
Thank you for your help with that, Brynn. You've a deft hand for flame magic. You can wear Sev's apprentice hat for one day. Also, Lucia knew what she was doing. This thimble was clearly designed to pair seamlessly with Enclave constructions.
Must be her experience as a high enchantress at work.
Based on Lucia's notes and what we discovered at the Bastion, this was custom designed to disrupt Asylum's barrier.
If it can stop the flood, we need to use it soon.
Agreed. We don't know how much time we have left.
Custom design and somewhat volatile enchanted device for disabling the Asylum barrier. Okay, let's go. Now that half the episode is taken up by dialogue. That's alright though. Let's see what we got.
That console that looks like our scry should be the controls for the barrier. The thimble was built to interface with it.
Great timing. I owe you one.
You need to come with me. All of you.
Well, that took an interesting turn.
We mustn't cause a panic.
Sure. It's not like we had a dire supplies shortage on our hands before this happened.
What do I tell the High Enchanter? The Guild will want...
Enough! We won't discuss this further. Not in front of our guests. Identify yourselves.
Aurea Harpene, or Silverbeak, as I'm known among Weaver circles.
Silverbeak.
This is my band, and beside me is our acting point.
Brynn. And you are?
Khan Stuneld, Eye of the Enclave. My colleagues are the Spindle and the Axle, representatives of the Enchanting and Crafting Guilds. Who sent you?
Sent us?
Taza? Renland? Udea? The Enclave is the envy of the Maida for its magical prowess. Clearly one of those nations has finally grown a spine and decided to take it for themselves in our moment of weakness.
Moment?
No one sent us. We came here by accident.
What kind of fool do you take me for? You expect me to believe that you bypassed our veil, infiltrated our loom gates, and breached Asylum without a national power backing you?
When you put it that way.
This is a misunderstanding. We're Weavers, like you. There was a brief opportunity to enter the Enclave for the first time in decades, and we took it. Everything we've done since we arrived has been to uncover what happened here after the Surge. And to find you.
If that is true, have you really no inkling of the trouble you've caused?
No.
Your reckless conduct has unleashed an enemy that nearly destroyed us 27 years ago.
The Surgeborn. They first appeared a little over a decade after the Veil went up.
Where did they come from?
No one knows. But they arrived in the Underworks before making their way to the surface.
Where they left a trail of destruction in their wake and wreaked havoc on the Enclave.
Causing casualties to rise.
And so I called for a retreat here, saving countless lives. We sealed the Surgeborn in the Underworks for good. Until now.
Clearly we messed up. Wonder why the High Side didn't intervene sooner. The Surgeborn came out of the underworld easy enough. Offer to put them back in.
Obviously, it was not our intention for this to happen, but it did. And for that, we're sincerely sorry.
Agreed. This was all an unfortunate mistake.
A lot of good your apologies are doing us now.
I knew
Look,
that was coming.
Surgeborn or not, we had no choice but to remove the barrier. Though I suppose we owe you thanks for warning us about the floods.
Who warned you?
You did.
Did we? I'll deal with you later.
While we can agree Arakin breached no-contact protocol, it has proven to be the right decision. The floods were growing worse, and now they have stopped. Even if fixing them has introduced a new problem.
One my band would be more than happy to help you solve.
Ha! Work together.
Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned your last name earlier. Any relation to Sharian Harpene?
She was my mother. You know who she is?
Of course! I mean, before my time, obviously, but she's still renowned in the Enchanting Guild. Her work is remarkable. There's a statue of her in Denevron, you know?
Oh. I can't believe she didn't mention that.
There is so much I'd love to ask you, but for now, Aurea comes from a long bloodline of outstanding and renowned weavers. Shouldn't that buy her band some grace?
All right. Your presence in the outskirts will be tolerated. Nothing more.
What about the Surgeborn?
What about them?
Shouldn't we work together to deal with them?
We could use the help.
The Surgeborn are a problem for anyone in the outskirts, not us. Cassidon's Hold is a fortress.
The scouts do head into the outskirts to scavenge for supplies.
We'll take our own precautions. Speaking of, we have pressing matters to attend to.
But...
Enough! My word is final.
Brynn, the one that led us here is clearly the one that warned us. Try to talk to him before we leave. Maybe he's willing to work with us.
Will do.
Okay. Lots of dialogue in this, but the story's picking up, so I'm digging it.
Hey, Arakim, was it?
Oh, just call me Arik.
Well, Arik, I never got a chance to thank you. You know, for grabbing me before I fell to my death.
I think you had it. Besides, I couldn't let you plummet into a chasm. The Eye is pretty peeved with me, but hey, that's just a bonus.
Alright. Let's see, I guess we'll go through all these.
So you're not upset that I breached Asylum, like your colleagues?
I've been pushing to do something about the Surgeborn for years now. Setting them free wasn't great, but sealing them in the underworks indefinitely was never a good solution. Frankly, I think Khan Stanild is just annoyed you undid his one claim to fame. I guarantee he has no plans to do anything about the Surgeborn now that they're free.
You don't think he sees them as a threat?
He's got his head in the sand about a lot of things.
So, are you glad we're here?
I'm thrilled you're here.
I have to say, I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah. Sorry for all that cloak and dagger stuff earlier. Khan Stanild had me on strict orders not to make contact with your Weaver band. But it was the right call. From what I just saw, your presence here is having an impact.
How so?
Notice how the Axle took my side against the Eye earlier. That never happens. And the Spindle is as quiet as a mouse most of the time, but not today.
Uh-huh. So these are big changes.
It might not sound like much, but they're excited you're here. Stanild can tell too. That's why he backed down so easily. And that's why I'm glad you're here.
You and the Eye don't seem to get along very well.
What gave it away? The mutual contempt? The Eye doesn't like anyone who shows initiative or challenges him. Unfortunately, those are my main qualities. And I suspect he perceives them in you, too.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression.
I'd worry if he ever decided to get off his throne and do something about it. But he finds that throne very comfortable.
You seem awfully trusting of us, considering the terrible first impression we've made.
I was spying on you the first time we met, so let's call it even.
Sure. Maybe you know everything already then, but have you got any questions for me?
Just one. Why are you here?
World needs the Enclave. Tell them I hope to bring down the veil. People have been through so much since the surge. Tell them I want to help. We need to find our way back home. Tell them I want to leave.
Decades of war across the Maida followed after the surge. Magic and weavers were blamed for all of it. Without the Enclave as a stabilizing force, it's as if the world outside has splintered into factions, divided by chaos and fear. Not to mention the lands surrounding the Veil are completely shrouded in tangles. I'm here to bring down the Veil, and play a small part in restoring the Maida Basin to what it was before the surge.
Wow. That's a big picture vision if I ever heard one. If that's truly what you want, then dealing with the Surgeborn is the first step. Ever since the Veil went up, our people have been in crisis. They've spent so long in it, they're afraid to do what it takes to get out. It doesn't help that some have benefited off that same crisis.
Who?
Who always benefits? The very top. Our leaders are too preoccupied with their own concerns to form a unified front against the Surgeborn.
Such as?
The Spindle is obsessed with getting the Arcs functional again. She believes that will help us regain control. And the Axle is too stressed about our supply shortage right now. But, if their concerns were handled, they could pressure the Eye to finally address the Surgeborn.
That sounds like an opportunity. And are you a representative yourself? Do you have sway?
Representative, yes. Sway? No. I represent the Scouts, meaning I'm at the meetings, but I don't have the title to back me up. The Scouts were once points like you, but our role has changed since the Veil went up. We were effectively drafted into scavenging for food and supplies. It made sense following the Surge, but it's been years. Recently, we've even been separated from Cassidon's hold and the remaining civilians. Anyway, it's the guild leaders who will need to pressure Khan Stanild into dealing with the Surgeborn, which is what needs to happen before we can even think about tackling the Veil.
Sounds like I've got some palms to grease.
Yuck. But yes, I'll come by your camp later. We'll be able to speak more freely there.
What is that about?
The Eye isn't one for idle chit-chat. That's worth watching.
Talk to you back at our camp.
You got it.
Sev, you all right?
No. I mean, yes. I'm fine.
You sure?
Brynn, the rest of us are heading out. See you back at camp.
I got to go.
Alright. Tepid welcome. Assault with the Spindle and Casimir's hold. Alright. So I think we are going to call this here. Definitely a big turning point in the story. So, pretty cool, lots of dialogue, but got through it. So, hopefully you all enjoyed, hopefully you're doing well. Stay tuned, more coming at you. Take care.